We're going to be doing our staplewood haircut now. We're going to start off with your mannequin freshly shampooed, section off forehead to nape and ear to ear. You notice we have 4 clips in the hair. We're going to start off doing our guide in the center back with no elevation. Rest that comb on the nape. I'm cutting mine at about 7 inches. If this is your first time cutting, you're going to leave yours a little bit longer. I'm going to use the razor and establish a horizontal guideline, working from the center to the outer corners. It doesn't matter if you go center left or center right, as long as you cut straight across that entire nape section. Once that's completed, you're going to move to your next row up, creating a new subsection, approximately 1 inch wide, side to side. Notice that I keep the clip in the hair. I don't put it on a table. This keeps you from dropping it or it sliding off of a table, so you keep it right there in the hair. You don't have to worry about looking for it. Now we're going to start using elevation, lifting that hair away from the head, not going up to 90, not going above 90. Combing it out. Notice I'm only combing it once or twice. And cutting. Some cases I'm only combing once, so don't comb the hair. You always take a little bit of where you've been with where you're going. So I'm splitting my subsection in half, adding another section to it, making sure I can see my guide, and cutting. You also have to be very careful that you're not recutting the guide you already had established. So you should only see the hair that's been added. Your new subsection should be the only hair that you're cutting. You want to keep your body centered with your work. Keep the hair nice and wet as you're going. And take off your next subsection, approximately 1 inch wide. Working side to side. I'm going to start in the center back again. A reminder, you're going to be elevating the hair out and cutting. It doesn't matter if you work left to right or right to left. Comb that hair out, lift up, drop what you don't need. Notice that hair that's dropped is because I didn't need it. It was from sections below. I only need a part of that section, last subsection from the very top. So your guide is a very small piece of hair, not a large. Lift away. Remember to use your razor safely. You want to have a nice, good, sharp blade in there. Lifting it out. Comb and cut. Keep that in your mind. Get yourself into a rhythm. Comb, lift, cut. Comb, lift, and cut. Comb that hair out and cut. Drop what you don't need. I just do it in one motion because remember, we're on a time frame here. You got 30 minutes to complete this cut. It's not the time to be a perfectionist. You want to do a good job. You don't have to be a perfectionist for this one. Moving on, we're at the top of the ear now. We're going to change over and use our shears. We'll be elevating the hair out from the head and cutting palm to palm. Notice, make sure you can see your guide. Take a little bit of where you've been with where you're going each time. Cutting it straight out. Comb it and cut it. And you can see me dropping that hair with my comb. I'm just removing what I don't need. You can drop it with your comb, you can drop it with your fingers. Sometimes you can just shake it and drop it, from the fingers that you're holding your cutting section. It's okay. Either one that works for you is fine. Again, combing it out. Keep your body centered with your work. You can pick your mannequin's head up and move it around on the pivot. Mine's not draped, but yours will have a cutting cape on there with a drape. Just be sure that you don't lift it all the way off of the pivot. You just lift it up slightly and turn it. That's perfectly fine to do that. Moving on to our next section. And now I'm actually going to start reducing the number of clips in the head. Now that I'm past the top of the ear, I'm going to go ahead and move it all the way to the front hairline. So your subsection has grown now. Think of it as a horseshoe. And we'll do this in approximately 3 subsections before we get to the top of the head. So you can usually do about 3 sections from the nape to the top of the ear, and again 3 sections from the top of the ear to the top of the head, and then you'll have your final 3 sections in the top of the head. So think of only having to pull out 9 sections as you're cutting. Keep the hair wet while you're cutting. Make sure to keep the hair detangled as you go. We're going to start back in the center back of the head again. We're going to still be cutting palm to palm at this point. We're going to move all around the head from the center to the front hairline. Making sure you can see your guide but not cutting your guide. If you got tiny little pieces on the floor, then that means you're actually cutting your guide, which you don't want to do. For state board, you have to cut a minimum of 1 inch. We suggest that you cut it down to approximately 5.5 to 6 inches for state board. But for practice, we have you leave it longer so you can do this cut more than 1 time before going to state board. Elevating that hair each time and working all the way to the front hairline. Taking a little bit of where you've been with where you're going. You're going to take out your next subsection again. You're going to work all the way around the head with that subsection from the front to side all the way around to the left side, left to right or right to left. Keeping that hair out of the mannequin's face. Remember, your mannequin is like a human that day. So pull the hair out. At this point now, I've got a clean guide that's from the hairline, so I can start the hairline instead of from the center. Or you can continue working from the center to the front. That doesn't matter. If it helps you stay more even, that's perfectly fine. You want to make sure you're pulling the hair straight out and that you're staying centered with your work. Try not to shift the hair to the left or to the right. That's creating over direction, which means you'll be adding length or removing length depending on which way you're holding it. Either one, you don't want to do that. You want to keep that hair nice and connected. Take out your next subsection. At this point, you are right at the top of the head. And notice I'm going to drop 1 more clip. Now we're down to 2 clips, and the horseshoe is left in the top of the head. And now we're going to elevate that hair up and out, and we're cutting over the fingers. You can see the guide from below. When you get to the back corner, you may not have to cut very much hair. That's okay. Just keep working the process. Those subsections are about the width of my finger. I'm picking up more hair than I actually need. I'm really only looking at the hair that's closest to the length that I'm cutting because that is my guide. Now we're at the top of the head. So we're going to continue elevating that hair up and out, cutting over the finger, taking a little bit of where you've been with where you're going. Be careful going around the back corners. making sure you can see your guide. And this is probably where you're going to be cutting the most length at, especially if it's your first cut on it. Your second cut will be much simpler and easier. You'll have a lot more tangling during your first cut. I'm now working with horizontal sections. I have a guide on both sides that I just got through cutting. So I have a guide on the back and on each side. I did cut past my first knuckle. Oops, don't do that. Just be careful. Notice I'm taking a little bit of where I've been with and adding it to where I'm going. It doesn't matter if you comb it to the left or to the right. The main thing is that you're getting a clean horizontal subsection to work with. And once it's lifted, I can see my guide from the front and from the back and from the sides. Following the curve of the head, just lifting it up and out and cutting. As you move towards the front of the head, you may need to start moving your subsection forward. I'm cutting from behind. If you have to split it and have to cut it depending on the width of the mannequin's head, that's fine. Now that I'm through with the cut, I'm going to go back and do my perimeter. The perimeter is the outer edge. When we cut the perimeter, we can do 0 elevation or no elevation. We're just looking for that tiny little piece on the corner to remove, to blend it out. A perimeter cut should be removing very little hair. Look at the ear area. You'll always find one little peak, and it's caused by the curvature of the ear and the hairline going up and then coming back down. You'll take that out. Point cutting works really well. And you look for the back corner. You won't remove any out of that center back on the nape, and you will be done.